ਅਸੀਂ ਰੀਸੈਂਟਲੀ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੇ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲੀ ਚੰਦਰਯਾਨ 3 ਲਾਂਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਮੂਨ 'ਤੇ ਐਂਡ ਇਹ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਬਟ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੁਇਕ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਦੇਵੋ ਕਿ ਚੰਦਰਯਾਨ 1 ਅਤੇ 2 ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਲੈਕ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਨਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਮੂਨ 'ਤੇ ਜਾਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਪੋਸੀਬਿਲਿਟੀਜ਼ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਚੰਦਰਯਾਨ 1 ਅਤੇ 2 ਵਿੱਚ ਰੁਕੀਆਂ. So just give us a quick update about that, please.
Yeah, so all based on my understanding. So Chandrayaan 1 2 mission, and so there was like a sequel Chandrayaan 1, Chandrayaan 2, and Chandrayaan 3. And I guess the reason Chandrayaan 3 even happened was because Chandrayaan 2 was not fully successful, right? And even Chandrayaan 2 is karke hoya because Chandrayaan 1 found a lot of great things. So, थोड़ा सा explain karanga. Chandrayaan 1 was essentially an impact probe. So, jada mission siga, it was not to land on the moon. People still do have a misconception that Chandrayaan 1 had to land on the moon. No, it wasn't correct actually. Chandrayaan 1 had an impact probe. So the thing was that, let's say that this is moon, right? So, and then this is the probe. So the probe had actually to hit the surface of the moon. And in the time it crashes to the moon, there would be a lot of important, crucial data sets that would be read and that would be transferred back to the planet Earth. And that's how it worked. It was actually not fully successful because ISRO, after the mission, there were also other missions that had to launch another launch probe, uh, another impact probe essentially. And that time, ISRO lost connection with it. It wasn't able to communicate with it further. But still, Chandrayaan 1 ne jo kita, it just opened the endless possibilities on what's possible on moon. So Chandrayaan 1 day jada impact probe see it found out that there is a possibility of having water elements on the south pole of moon. And that is the reason कि Chandrayaan 2 hoya because then they wanted to land and to figure out that stuff. Chandrayaan 2 essentially की हुआ है Chandrayaan 2 ची. So Chandrayaan 2 had an orbiter and then Chandrayaan 2 had another lander. So orbiter is what that would orbit the moon, right? Essentially it can be used to, do remote sensing on moon, and it even can be used as another transmitter through which like there is a lander and then communicates to this and then communicates back to the planet Earth. There is a possibility on that. So Chandrayaan 2, the jada orbiter siga, it went completely fine. It was placed on the orbit. It's still there. And that's why Chandrayaan 3 chi, there is no orbiter. There was only lander. So the orbiter Jada Siga, it was successfully placed. But that after that in Chandrayaan 2 lander, it wasn't able to soft land on South Pole. And it crashed. And that was a software error because there was not enough room for the satellite, for the lander essentially, to orient itself, because that time probably because it was the first attempt of India as well. Chandrayaan 3, they see Chandrayaan 3 ची उन्होंने बहुत time लेता. They took at least 2 to 3 years. अगर वो कर सकते थे, they could have launched another lander after like 2 to 3 months, but they did not do that. Chandrayaan 3 had to be a success because there was a lot of room for improvement, and ISRO worked on that. And they then it gave a lot of room even in the software that Chandrayaan 3, the lander can orient itself if there is any such situation occurs. So उस वजह नाल चंद्रयान 3 had to be a success. Now एक चीज इसरो दी बहुत अच्छी है. Recently तो सुनने आएगा Luna 25 was also launched as a competitor to Chandrayaan 3. So Luna 25 was essentially a Russian spacecraft that had to land on the moon, but it failed. And why it failed? Chandrayaan 3, ISRO, actually India always believes in he go slow and steady and then you win the race. And exactly वही चीज हुई. अगर ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੰਦਰਯਾਨ ਦਾ orbit ਸਮਝੋਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਮੰਗਲਯਾਨ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਹੋਇਆ, ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਇੰਟਰਪਲੈਨੇਟਰੀ ਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, there's a very specific way to leave the earth. Essentially one thing you can do is, let's say this is the earth and then you will do this and then you are on the moon. This is one way you can do that. The other way is to just orbit and orbit and orbit and orbit until you just leave the earth's orbit. And that's a natural way. Because of that natural way of insertion into an orbit and coming out of it, it just becomes much safer because you are going naturally. And
And
because
is
you're free.
and does it also take more time since it's orbiting, right?
Definitely. But this is one of the safest ways because you're essentially free falling with with the nature, right? That's the natural orbit, and you are like free falling, but also saving fuel. And that's what is to always do. Like, let's say this is Earth, it is like orbiting, orbiting, and all. And once it is in the last orbit, last external orbit of the planet, it just leaves. And after that, ISRO ignites the fuel and it goes to the moon. Let's say this is the moon now. When it comes to the moon, it starts orbiting again and again. Now this is called deorbiting. Now it is orbiting down and down, and then there is a point when it comes very near to the moon, and then ISRO ignites, and then the Chandrayaan just comes here and land, and that's how it works. In terms of Luna 25, they were igniting it easily, and they just wanted to land it like this. And then when you're doing these kind of things, there are chances that there could be some unforeseen consequences because space is unpredictable. ISRO chose the safest way because they actually wanted to worth those $75 million dollars or whatsoever amount spent on the entire mission. And I personally think that Russia was more in the race to land first and make a record of being the first country to land on the south pole of the moon. But Ixis Hegi, as a member of the space fraternity, I also have a grief for the loss of Luna 25. It is not just about your sentiment of being nationalist or patriotic, but अगर Luna 25 we properly land कर जाता तो essentially और ही discovery zone है, see there could have been no negatives out of it.